Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. It's November 3rd, and these are your headlines. First up, fall trout fishing across southern New England is at its peak right now. Both Connecticut and Massachusetts have just wrapped up their fall stockings. November albie is a distinct possibility in both Massachusetts and Connecticut this week. And last up, the tog fishing in Buzzards Bay is still going strong. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Here I am in a different place. Shot that intro this morning after getting off the boat with Jason Colby, running out of Westport Harbor. And we'll talk a little bit more about that trip in the Massachusetts portion of the report. By now you guys know the drill. You gotta get me your photos of recently caught fish, freshwater, saltwater, doesn't matter to me. Send them to me at danderson@thefisherman.com or text them to the number on the screen. And this one's going to run until December 22nd. I've got a Google Man bunker colored pikey, and I've also got a Yozuri hydro twitch bait to give away. And we'll pick our favorites, and we'll award some prizes right in time for the holidays. Now we're going to start things off in Massachusetts as we always do, and up on the North Shore the striper migration is definitely winding down, but it has not yet ended. For a deeper dive on that, we're going to toss it over now to Mr. James Jukes.
How you doing, Dave? Up here on Plum Island, still getting after it. I'm still in my wetsuit. Had a pretty good weekend. Had lots of slot fish still, with a bunch of smaller fish mixed in. So we're probably getting close to the end of the fall run. Although I'm going to fish until Thanksgiving. I'm not giving up until Thanksgiving. I'm sure I'm going to be able to find some smaller fish here or there. Anyways, this weather is unbelievable. I'm sure you can see right behind me with the sun setting. It's kind of crazy out here. And like I said, I'm still in a wetsuit, and the water temperature is still okay to fish. Air temperature's been fine. Surf's been good. The weather we had last week, we had some mung. That cleared out, and the fish lit up. But there's not many guys out here. I'm pretty lucky right now. Tonight I'm gonna try for my November fish. We'll see what happens. I'm sure I'm gonna find some. I haven't had any word from guys that are north of us or south of us in Gloucester at all, so I gotta imagine most of those guys gave up already. The freshwater side, still cooking along. That northeast blow and the rain and everything cleared out, and those guys are all back on to fish again. But that's it from Plum Island up here. Hope everything's good, and don't give up yet.
And every mile you head, to the south or the east from there, you're going to be getting closer to a better part of the striper migration. We are still seeing a decent concentration of stripers from like the east end of the Cape Cod Canal out to Plymouth, maybe even a little further, like out to the North River. Been a lot of daytime blitzes. We talked about that last week, and it's continued again into this week. Not a lot of guys are fishing for them, so if you're out and about in that area, you're likely to have the fish to yourself if you can find them. And these are not giant fish. They're mostly in that 24 to like 34, 35 inch range, but decent number of slots in the mix there, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if someone pulled a 20-pounder out of it. And it's nice fall time, daytime fishing. You're out there driving around looking for birds working, and then hoping they come within range of the shore. Out on the Cape, very similar story to what we saw last week, although it has slowed down a little bit more. Water temps are coming down. But the Bayside beaches are still putting out stripers, especially at night. Guys are getting them on swimming plugs and sluggos and needlefish and things like that. Not a lot of boat fishermen seem to be targeting stripers right now. I've seen a few guys on the other side, like down toward Monomoy, still getting some stripers in that area. But man, out on the main part of the Cape, or the outer Cape, not a lot of guys chasing stripers. Most of the guys heading out in boats out that way are going out for tuna. And there's a lot of wreck-sized fish out there right now, from Stellwagen all the way down to the Sword. So, it's November, water's getting cold. Now we're in that time when you really need to pick your days. But if you get a day, like we're seeing this afternoon, pretty flat seas, and it's just beautiful out here. You got to make it happen, because these days are definitely fewer and fewer as this month wears on, and before you know it, it's going to be winter again. Coming down around through into the Monomoy area, like I said, there are some guys getting stripers in the Monomoy Rips area still. Seem to be, getting smaller and smaller. And the same could be said for the Nantucket Sound beaches. Guys fishing the inlets and the harbor mouths there are still finding stripers, mostly just under slot, but a few into the slot. And similar sized fish are being found, on the north and west side of the Vineyard. But the really interesting thing out at the Vineyard is there's still albies out there. There are albies and some bonitos, so you really do have a shot at a November albie. But I got to tell you, if you're going to make it happen, you're going to have to make it happen soon, because as soon as we get another blow, I got a feeling those fish are going to be gone. And they've also reportedly been very, very finicky. So it's mostly the fly guys that are even hooking up at all, but they are there, and you could, if you've got it in you, if you've got the juice in you, you could go out there and get your November albie by heading out to the Vineyard. Moving through into Buzzards Bay, it's been, it's been mostly it's mostly stripers and tog in Buzzards Bay. There's definitely a few bluefish in the area as well. We've seen some big blues come through the canal over the last 7 to 10 days. And the canal itself still holding on, still decent numbers of bass in there. You're seeing fewer and fewer, truly big fish in there, but still lots of slot-sized fish, still, some just overs, and lots of schoolies, lots of bait. For a deeper dive on what's going on in the canal, let's toss it over now to East End Eddie.
Thanks, Dave. It's a nice fall morning here in the canal. We've got a west tide, the tail end of a west tide, and that gets most of my attention during the fall, because the stripers are lazy and like to ride the tide, and that's the route they take south, and it takes them closer to the south when they're riding a west tide, unless of course they go around P-Town and hang a right, and that happens too. But hopefully most of them come through the canal. Although the last week the east tide has been the most productive, and what a week it was. Just miles and miles of breaking striped bass along the surface, and followed by big schools of huge bluefish, and bent rods all around. Just a lot of fun. And so the east end has been good. Anis Terazakis comes here from Connecticut with his son Nick. They went to some fish the other day up to 42 inches, and Anis caught a 26-pounder. Bill Jenkinson landed a nice slot in the east end. And I was fishing at pole 50 the other day on the mainland side. There was so many experienced canal surfcasters there that it looked like a canal rats convention, and we all had a good time. Fish were caught, and mostly small ones, but there were a lot of slots and some bigger, 38, 39 inches. And the next day, George Osler caught a 42-inch. And we're also happy for George, because he's had serious surgery that he's still recovering from. And so we hadn't seen him in a while. It's nice that George made a comeback and ended up with a 42-inch fish. So good for him. He's a great guy, and we missed him. And so the next day, I was fishing at pole 80, and Marie Murray went behind me on her rollerblades. She rollerblades up and down the canal, 7 miles one way and then 7 back, for a total of 14 miles. So she's a great scout. She gives me fishing reports as what she sees along the way and where the fish are. And it was funny, because I was at pole 80, and she had just gone by the State Fish Pier, which isn't far from there. And she said, Eddie, there are so many guys crowded into that fish pier. She said, isn't there a weight limit for that? And I looked over there, and I think she's right. There ought to be a weight limit. Look who's going to fall into the canal. But one of those guys that day was Jimmy Kelly, who caught a 14.8-pound bluefish. So congratulations to Jimmy. It's a nice fish. It was 35 inches long, and he caught it with a canal bait and tackle soft plastic wacky mac jig. And so guys have had a lot of success this year. Legendary surfcasters like Taunton Teddy Menard, Mark Beckford, John Doble, Kevin Downs, Ray and David Barros, Bobby Abreu, Pistol Pete Freitas, Jumpin' Joe England, Bill on the Grill Prudo. These guys all had bent rods. It's been great here since August. And Tim Hollywood Petrarca caught 150 fish just in the month of October. It's been unbelievable. And so my tip of the week is that if you're going to take a striped bass home, of course it has to be 28 to 30, less than 35 inches, but make sure you bleed it or gut it before you put it on ice, because you can't fillet it on the canal. You have to keep it intact, but at least bleed it, and your efforts will pay off with a better meal. So even though I think the fall fishing is going to continue terrific right into November, I think it's going to be a great month of November. This is my last canal report of the year. I've got some other responsibilities. Got 5 grandchildren that need to be tickled, and I'm going to try to work on my second book and finally finish it if I can. And so I'd like to thank Dave Anderson for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And if Dave asks me to come back next year, I'll be honored to do so and happy to see you in the spring. That's the railroad bridge going down in the West End. And so if you see me over the winter at a Christmas party or a fishing show, please stop by and introduce yourself and say hello. And I've already been booked for the Springfield Sportsman Show in February, and I just got booked for Mohegan Sun for 2 appearances there in March. So until then, have a happy holiday season and a safe winter.
And as we talked about in the intro, I went out this morning with Captain Jason Colby heading out of Westport. We were out looking for tog, and we had some pretty stiff wind this morning coming out of the east-northeast. And Buzzards Bay, it takes a beating in an east-northeast wind. So we were kind of kept in closer to the shoreline. We were only able to fish in waters as deep as 45 feet. He really wanted to go out until like 60, but he said wouldn't be comfortable for anybody. But he's a true professional. We hit a bunch of different spots that were producing some bigger fish earlier in the season, and we were able to put together a limit, or close to a limit, for 3 of us. Most of them were, right around keeper size. I did get one decent fish, probably in the 8-pound range, I would guess. We didn't weigh it. But the togging in Buzzards Bay is still looking very good. He said that his other trips this week, when the winds were a little calmer or from a different direction, were very good, and still getting a lot of solid sized fish. A lot of 8 and 9 pound fish are out there. Didn't say that he had any double digits, but he said that it hadn't been difficult to put limits together really this whole week, or over the past 7 days. And of course we just got out there on one of the tougher days, but we made it happen. And last up, we'll talk about some of the freshwater fishing. We're going to kind of just spread it out throughout the entire southern New England slate here. Roy hasn't been fishing much these last 2 weeks, so he doesn't have a report for us this week. But what I can tell you is that I know Massachusetts has wrapped up its trout stocking for the fall, and I know Connecticut has wrapped up its trout stocking for the fall, and I'm pretty sure Rhode Island is close. I think that they still got a couple more ponds they're going to dump some fish into. But what that means is, we're at peak fall trout fishing right now, and not that many guys take advantage of it. So, you can go on to any one of the fisheries websites for any one of these states, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. You can look and see what ponds were stocked, how recently they were stocked. You can even see what they put in there. And the numbers are in the tens of thousands in each state. So if you're looking to bend a rod, you got a beautiful day like today, you want to go relax on the side of a freshwater pond, go to the website first, pick out one of those recently stocked lakes, and a really good shot that you're going to catch some nice trout. Over in Rhode Island, it's a 2-horse or a 2-fish race right now. We've got tog and we've got striped bass, and it definitely seems like tog are winning the race at the moment. But that fishery is also in transition. These fish are moving deeper, as we talked about with the whole thing with Jason Colby. Where we were fishing 10 to 30 feet of water a couple weeks ago, now we're fishing 35 to 70 feet of water. And but November's a great time to target big fish, and Rhode Island seems to be the place to do it. Early in the month, like it is right now, is probably one of the best times to get a really big fish, anywhere from Newport to Narragansett, out to Block Island, and any of these rocky reefs off of South County. They've all got tog on them, and togging has never been more popular. The jigs were working great today, and I find that to be it just makes togging so much fun. And there's still plenty of jig fish to be caught, so definitely if you're into that, get out there. I mean, we've got some good weather coming up. We've got some nice looking days, and the tog bite is looking really good right now. A lot of good fish being caught and a lot of fast action. You're also going to catch some sea bass in a lot of these places, and there's still some really nice sea bass around, so that's a nice little bonus bycatch that you'll have there. And in Rhode Island, unlike Massachusetts, they are legal to keep right through the end of the year, so you can top the coolers off with those. And then, of course, the other thing is the striped bass, and it's been mostly a surf fisherman's game. I don't know exactly why that is, but most of what we're seeing are guys fishing the surf, and they're finding fish mostly like just below and just over the slot, so like say 24 to 34 inches, but there are some bigger fish in the mix. Fish up into the 25-pound class are around, and there's definitely more and bigger fish to come. Happens every year. You just got to be diligent. Also, South County, the breachways always get all the press, but those fish still have to travel through the other parts of Rhode Island and through Massachusetts as well. So don't write those places off. It's not like they just magically appear in South County. Those fish are migrating. They're coming through all these areas, and all these areas have the juice to produce some fish. So don't overlook those. On the togging front, which I forgot to go back to, so we're just going to go back to it now. I did want to toss it over now to Captain John Lee from JL Charters and hear what he's been doing this week.
Had a handful of Blackfish trips this week. 2 were strong and 2 were a little bit more of a grind. Had to re-anchor a bunch of times, found some fish, lost a fish. It was just kind of a funky bite. I think that a lot of people have the same experience. I'm fishing still fairly deep, 70 feet, like 60 to 70 feet. I've been playing around a lot with spider crabs, and I'm really into that bait right now. So that's what I got. Take care.
On the albie front, I think we can declare the season over in Rhode Island. I won't rule out the possibility of 1 or 2 schools charging through South County somewhere, but I think that's pretty much over. We got no albie reports this week and in Rhode Island, but we did get some in Connecticut, so stay tuned for that. Over in Connecticut, as I alluded to there, we have quite a few species on the menu. You got albies, you got bonito, you got black sea bass, tautog, striped bass, and bluefish. And that's excluding all the freshwater options that we have as well. Eastern Sound has seen another shot of albies. I heard about just the other day, somewhere around the Niantic area. I wasn't told exactly where. There was just a massive blow up of game fish. There were bluefish, there were big striped bass, and there were albies, and there was some bonito in the mix as well. And you could throw an epoxy jig or like some kind of little topwater walk the dog type of a thing, and you didn't even know what you were going to catch. You might get a 25-pound striper, you might get an albie, you might get a bonito, you might get a teen-sized bluefish. Suffice it to say, there's some good fishing to be had in the Eastern Sound. Black fishing also has been, I think the blackfish season in Connecticut has been a little underwhelming compared to other years. It seems like it's kind of on a slow rise right now. It seems to be getting a little bit better right now. And we are seeing more and better fish. But still, I haven't heard about any giants, but do not rule out that Eastern Sound, out to Niantic Bay. That area always seems to produce one beast every year, something ridiculous, 14, 18, 20 pounds. It seems to happen with fair regularity. Now's a great time to target that fish, so don't write that off just yet. Still lots of striped bass action around the mouth of the Connecticut River and up into the river itself. For a little bit more on that, let's toss it over now to Mike Roy from Real Cash Charters.
Hey, what's up, guys? For this week's fishing report, it's November 2nd, and the striper fishing remains good. The average size may have gone down a little bit. We're seeing a lot more fish in the 20 to 30 inch range as opposed to a week ago when there were more 30 to 36 inch fish. As far as catching a really big fish this time of year, there's still a chance. I would recommend live bait, as always. And if you want to look for something in the 30 or 40 pound range, you're probably going to have to get away from the schools of fish that you're seeing on the surface. We did have a big fish about a week ago, and in 2016, we had fish over 40 pounds, and that was on November 5th, and that was on live bait, and we were away from the schools of fish. So that's my advice if you want one more chance at a big striper. Still some big blues around. We had some double-digit bluefish as well, and the tog bite should continue to improve. It has definitely gotten better in the past few days.
As we head west from the Connecticut River, you know, you got a lot of reef systems out there that hold a lot of different species of fish. You got black sea bass in there. You're probably going to be finding mostly short sea bass in those areas until you get off those far edges. Once you get into that deeper water, you may find some keepers out there. There's also going to be tons of tog on those reefs, and those are great places to target. But one thing I would caution you against, especially, you know, as the season wears on now, is only going to places that have names on the map. You really want to just target some of these smaller pieces of structure or places that just kind of show up as a bump on the chart and that don't have a name associated with them, because a lot of these places just don't get fished because, you know, most people want to go somewhere they've heard of. Don't be afraid to explore, especially with territorial fish like tog, because, you know, once you find those, you know, lesser utilized, lesser pressured honey holes, you can really do some damage. So keep that sounder on, drive around slow, and find yourself some hot spots where nobody else knows. For a little bit more on what's going on in the central western part of the sound, let's toss it over now to the guys from Black Hall Outfitters.
Really good fall fishing out there right now. Pretty similar report from the last couple weeks. We've got a lot of blitzes being fueled by a lot of different bait, peanuts, silver sides, that kind of stuff. For me, outgoing tide has been really good, especially near river and creek mouths. We have that bait being flushed out, and the birds and the bass and the blues are taking full advantage of it. Some pretty awesome, like, National Geographic style stuff out there. Pretty underrated days out on the water this year. I don't think people you know, just take advantage of it as much as possible sometimes, but it's really epic out there right now, just in terms of fishing fun. You might not catch giant stripers or giant blues, even though there are some good ones in the mix, but it's just fun out there. A lot to do. Obviously the big one is tog. It's been really good, it's been really consistent. You got to pick through a lot of shorts has been the story this year, but people are able to limit out. After rain there has been some muckier water, so try to find some cleaner water so that you can get on the bite a little bit better there. Pretty standard stuff as far as tog. We got a lot of green crab bites, jigs, rigs, that kind of stuff. One thing to highlight, new from Nomad Design, Ammonite. This is ultra thin jigging braid. So as those blackfish start to move a little deeper when the water temp drops, this kind of stuff is going to be really great. Let you keep contact with your jig in deeper water and feel those bites, not have any drag in the current, that kind of thing. So definitely something worth checking out. We have it in 40 pounds and up. This is the 40-pound braid. It's super thin, really good stuff. So generally that's what's going on. There's also some good albie reports still going on out there, so it might not be worth dedicating a morning to them, but if you are heading out, absolutely keep an albie rod with you, because they have been coming through pretty periodically and pretty consistently. So we hope that stays, and we hope the good fishing stays, and until then we'll be out on the water.
And finally, we'll wrap it up out in the Western Sound with Max Finch from Fisherman's World.
The fall run bite is full on this week. We've seen a really good uptick in bite along our beaches with all the peanut bunker flooding out on these sandy flats. Places like Sherwood, Campo Beach, the backside of the islands, off Bridgeport's been hot, the mouth of the Housatonic. There's been some really big bluefish, and the bass are really schooled up, and they're putting the feed bag throughout like the whole day almost. There's no like really hot bites. I would say the lower tides is definitely your better chances, because all the bait is getting flushed out now. Stuff like small spoons work really well this time of year, bucktails, small spooks, and then, you know, your typical paddle tails from Tsunami or Lunker City. The blackfish bite is still steady. We haven't heard of really any real big fish caught yet. A lot of the shorts are mixed in these shallow water spots. But as we move well into November, you know, the bigger fish tend to bite a little better with the cooler temps. So I would still pick away. And then guys still on wrecks are reporting a good bite with some knothead sea bass still in the mix. Thanks to everyone and good luck.
And finally, we're going to throw it over now to Rowan Lytle. He's going to give us a little rundown on some of the lesser utilized freshwater fisheries that we have in Connecticut.
Howdy all. With such a ridiculously warm start to November, I am not paying as much attention to trout and things of that nature as I would most years. The salt has remained absolutely phenomenal. There's even still chub mackerel around in high abundance. As you can see, Noah Johnson's not with me today. He had a charter pretty recently though, and they absolutely put the hammer down on chub mackerel. Other than that, there are still plenty of albies. They're not super abundant, but if you go out and look for them, they can be caught. On the weird stuff front, there are a lot of ladyfish in certain areas, the millstone discharge in particular. So if you want to catch an exotic fish on the same day you catch a striped bass, you can pop into the millstone discharge and catch something that's, you know, more commonly caught in Florida, and then you can pop into a nearby cove and catch some schoolies. So it's always interesting when you get that sort of contrast. Now, unfortunately, those fish will probably die as the water surrounding that gets colder, but that's just how it works over there. All right, everybody, enjoy the next coming weekend. It looks like highs in the 70s. Man, this is ridiculous. Catch you all later.
That's what I have for you guys this week in the reports. Hopefully you find them useful. As I say every week, if you're not a subscriber to The Fisherman, just head over to the website and check it out. It's thefisherman.com. There's enough free content on there to give you a pretty good flavor of what we offer. We have 3 editions. One that covers the Mid-Atlantic and New Jersey, one that covers Long Island, and one that covers New England. That's mine. And we cover every species of fish that swims in those waters, fresh and salt, and we cover all different angling disciplines, from fly fishing to surf fishing to slow pitch to all inshore and offshore fishing. Even destination stuff like heading down to Marina Pez Vela in Costa Rica or going out to the Salmon River up in upstate New York. We've got it all covered. It's the best $30 you can spend in fishing. I can guarantee you that. So head on over to the website, check that out, and if you're still not interested, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Past Dreamboat winner Sam Dibner is truly showing his angling skills with yet another entry, this time with the first place sea bass weighing in at 5.74 pounds. Remember, past Dreamboat winners aren't eligible for the first place prize and will be swapped with the second place winner. Rob Carazano currently holds the second place position for total points and broke a tie this week with Garrett Weir because his largest fish entered, a bluefish weighing in at 15.4 pounds, is larger than Garrett's largest fish of 10.86 pounds. Other notable entries this week was this tog weighed in by Ben Perry of Quaker Hill, Connecticut, with a 13.05 pound blackfish, placing him in second place for that category. Wow, the drama is reaching its highest level as we steam quickly to the finale of the 2023 Dreamboat Challenge. Dave tells me that there were no new entries in the Coastal Kayak Clash this week. Justin Oser is still in first, Bob Wagner in second, and Tom Howard in third. There's still time to fish for both contests. Make sure you're a subscriber to be part of the action.